Our hands together for Mark Strickson.
I heard about you on the phone last night. Okay, I love these things called workshops. If you want a workshop by Mark Strickson, you should come to the University of New England where I give drama tutorials. How I do these things is I ask you to ask me questions and then I ramble on about Doctor Who and about science fiction and how you make television, alright? So somebody asks me a question and we'll go from there. I need one question to talk for about 3 hours. Alright? Oh, woo. There was one over there. What's my real name? My real name is Mark Strickson. A guy in the back there. This is fame for you, okay? When I was working on Doctor Who, Julie, my wife and I, my sort of ex-wife and I, were living on a boat on the Grand Union Canal. And a guy called Michael Morris had done some episodes of Doctor Who, and he was having a party at his house. And he said, oh, you know, you must come to the party, fine, right. Happened to be a Saturday when I wasn't working on Doctor Who. Julie was working on something else for the BBC, and she said she'd meet me at Michael Morris's. And there was a regatta on the canal, and I got very, 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 very drunk that lunchtime. And I got on my bike, and that's the last I remember. But apparently I went into a car, and I went over the top of the car, and it's a very silly thing to do when you're young, and I ended up in hospital, which is why I have a slight scar on my ear. But this got developed in the press. There was a guy on a motorbike who'd narrowly missed 3 children, who'd gone over the top of the car, had brain damage, and was in hospital, right? This was me. And I went into the off licence about 2 weeks later, and the guy said, you don't mind me asking, do you? Are you the guy? And I thought, oh no, you're the guy off Doctor Who. I said, are you the guy who came off his bike outside the off licence 2 weeks ago? I got favourite laugh. It happens to me today. The gentleman standing back there, he said, don't I know you from somewhere? He said, I've seen you walking around Woy. Yeah, this is true. I lived in Woy for a year. So, I'm Mark Strickson. Hello. Ask me another question. Yeah. In the Cyclops I had orange hair, go on. How did they make it orange? Well, when I got the job on Doctor Who, you may not realise this, but Peter Davison and I have the same colour hair. Peter's is blonde, so is mine. This isn't a problem when we're standing next to each other because Peter is about 4 foot taller than me. This is fine, but on a long-distance camera shot, that is a problem. But if you're shooting long distance, you can't immediately pick up the character. So John Nathan Turner, the producer of Doctor Who, when I got the part, said, can I have a little word in your shell-like, Mark? We've been thinking about the character of Turner, and we thought about having all your hair cut off. And there's a great thing with the BBC. If you don't agree with the BBC, you mention money, right? Because mention money and the BBC run, right? Panic sets in, right? And so I said, well, yeah, that's absolutely fine. No problem at all. Penny for loss of earnings, 3 months after I finished the contract. Absolutely fine. A glazed look went over John's eyes. This obviously wasn't the answer to the problem. So the answer to the problem was to dye my blonde hair bright red. Right? So I went to go and see them at wardrobe, and the girls at wardrobe said, oh, it's makeup. They said, it's no problem, Mark. We'll just put a wash out and dye in. And it'll just rinse out, no worries. So, oh yeah, that's fine, yeah, fine. So I go along, and they put it in. I have a shower that night. Nothing. I still got the same colour hair. I've got bright red hair. Aging punk look. And I go to sleep. I wake up in the morning, and there's this pillow. It may not have come off in the shower, but my pillow is bright red. And I lived with a bright red pillow for 2 years. And talking about being on the boat, one of the worst things about this was it made me instantly recognisable in the UK. So, I'd be walking around the supermarket, and about, 6 weeks after I'd been on Doctor Who, and these kids would scatter behind baked bean tins, knocking knocking things over. Oh my God, sir! You know, and Julie used to know I was coming home from the boat because the kids at the playground used to go, "Hi, sir, hi, guys," you know, and all this sort of thing. I mean, nobody else in the UK looked like me. It was pretty, you know, I mean, it was like copper-coloured, you know, and it was stiff. It was like a scrubbing brush. It was absolutely disgusting. It was wonderful when I got rid of it. Yeah. Ask me another question. Yes.
Why did you decide to come out to Australia?
Because I'm a beach bum. I think it's some serious. Well, when you go for immigration from England, right, you get this form through and they say, it's no good just sitting in this form and saying, I want to emigrate to Australia because the weather's better there. You've got to think of a better reason than that, right? I couldn't think of a better reason. The only reason I wanted to emigrate was because the weather was better here. And that is a bit of a simplification. Julie and I have moved to a house on the south coast in England. We've been living in London. We didn't like living in the city. I've been brought up in the country. She'd always lived by the sea. London's a bit of a shitty, it's a lot of a shitty. So anyway, we had our sort of dream house in England, one of 4 houses in the middle of a national park. But Julie was working on a soap, Emmerdale Farm, and was commuting to Leeds, which was 5 hours away. I mean, she was there all week, or whatever, and coming home just for the weekend sometimes. I was working for the BBC, which was 2.5, 3 hours away. If I wanted to leave by car, I'd have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get me to the BBC by 10, 60 miles away. We're talking a lot of population in England. It's very crowded and a lot of traffic jams. The traffic jams like you've never seen in Australia. You can get within 10 miles of the BBC, it will take 2.5 hours to get across London in the morning. That's the sort of traffic. So I sat in the BBC one day, and I thought, well, this is it. I'm a successful actor in the UK. I've been working for the BBC for 5 years in the UK. So, you know, I've been walking around the supermarket, and about, 6 weeks after I've been on Doctor Who, and these kids would scatter behind baked bean tins, knocking things over. Oh my God, sir! And Julie used to know I was coming home from the boat because the kids at the playground used to go, hi, sir, hi, guys, and all this sort of thing. I mean, nobody else in the UK looked like me. It was pretty, it was like copper-coloured, and it was stiff. It was like a scrubbing brush. It was absolutely disgusting. It was wonderful when I got rid of it. Yeah. Ask me another question. Yes.
Why did you decide to come out to Australia?
Because I'm a beach bum. I think it's some serious. Well, when you go for immigration from England, right, you get this form through and they say, it's no good just sitting in this form and saying, I want to emigrate to Australia because the weather's better there. You've got to think of a better reason than that, right? I couldn't think of a better reason. The only reason I wanted to emigrate was because the weather was better here. And that is a bit of a simplification. Julie and I have moved to a house on the south coast in England. We've been living in London. We didn't like living in the city. I've been brought up in the country. She'd always lived by the sea. London's a bit of a shitty, it's a lot of a shitty. So anyway, we had our sort of dream house in England, one of 4 houses in the middle of a national park. But Julie was working on a soap, Emmerdale Farm, and was commuting to Leeds, which was 5 hours away. I mean, she was there all week, or whatever, and coming home just for the weekend sometimes. I was working for the BBC, which was 2.5, 3 hours away. If I wanted to leave by car, I'd have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get me to the BBC by 10, 60 miles away. We're talking a lot of population in England. It's very crowded and a lot of traffic jams. The traffic jams like you've never seen in Australia. You can get within 10 miles of the BBC, it will take 2.5 hours to get across London in the morning. That's the sort of traffic. So I sat in the BBC one day, and I thought, well, this is it. I'm a successful actor in the UK. I've been working for the BBC for 5 years. I can't really do any better than this in some ways, and my quality of life is zilch. What do I do about it? So I thought, well, what's the problem? You don't like living in the city. So what do we do? Well, there are two places you can go as an actor. I had a file marked French property about moving to France. Couldn't do that. So, well, you either go to America or Australia. I don't really like America as a place to live in. So I thought, I've never been to Australia. Why don't I come to Australia? And Julie and I sold everything and put it in the back of a truck and came to Australia. Simple as that. It's pretty frightening when you get off the plane. We didn't know anybody at all in Australia. And it was extraordinary. We had a friend of mine from the Royal Academy come and see us in a flat in Darling Point about 2 months after we'd been here. He said, I'll never forget the two of you. You were looking out into space over the sea with crates of champagne around you, wondering what on earth you were doing here. And we were. We had no idea what we were doing here. But I know what I'm doing here when I can have an hour on the beach like I did this morning. That's why I'm here. And both my parents have chronic bronchitis and they live in York. You know, that's why I'm here. But it is not a silly thing to say to the weather. You have no idea how depressing it is when it rains for 6 weeks. It has now been raining for 6 weeks in England. It is really depressing. So, there we go. I can't think of a better reason than the sunshine. And they still accepted me for immigration, so good on them. Perhaps because I was honest. Gave us a breath of fresh air. Yeah, another question. Yeah, kind of. After myself. What do you mean? Who's my favourite Doctor Who man after myself? No. I mean, Andrew, Matthew Waterhouse is a really nice guy. He just can't act. No, I don't mean that in a mean way. The guy's not an actor. I mean, if you can just be picked up from the street and act, that's fine. In which case, I wasted 10 years of my life learning how to act. In which case, it was a complete waste of time, me going to the Royal Academy. It was a complete waste of time, me working in theatre and learning the grassroots. It wasn't a complete waste of time. It's not easy. You can't just act. Acting is highly technical. And when you start casting people, just picking them off the street and putting them in television programs, you get problems. Right? You get problems because they don't know about camera technique. They don't, and they can't cope with all the other things to do with acting. So, you know, Matthew's great. And Matthew's grown up to be a really nice guy. But he had really bad, it's also slightly immoral. He had really bad problems being cast in Doctor Who, suddenly being launched into this life he knew nothing about. So, you know, he writes quite nice poetry as well, Matthew. Just as a matter of course. Who's my favourite companion? Well, I liked working with Janet, but then it's because I liked Janet. I like Sarah as well, but Janet and I are sort of similar people. So, yeah, I like Janet's character. I mean, amongst the others, I can't really say. They're as distant to me as they are to you, probably more so, because when you were watching Doctor Who, I was watching Captain Scarlet. No, I didn't have a television when I was a kid. I was brought up in the country, and I didn't have a television, so I didn't watch Doctor Who. And when I got cast on Doctor Who, I didn't realise what was going to happen to my life. I didn't realise it was a cult programme. I thought it was just, I mean, I've been working on a soap called Angels, playing a bloody ambulance man called Teddy. And, you know, I was doing the sort of stuff that, you know, I mean, a bit different to Doctor Who. Doctor Who is, you know, green slimy monster appears at the end of the corridor. Oh my God, green slimy monster, act frightened. Ah! All right, so it's great. Because it's not easy to do. I'll talk to you about that. It's not easy to do. It's much more difficult to sit in the hospital in Birmingham and say, Alison, what are you doing for all you do? How depressing it is when it rains for 6 weeks. It's now been raining for 6 weeks in England. It is really depressing. So, there we go. I can't think of a better reason than the sunshine. And they still accepted me for immigration, so good on them. Perhaps because I was honest. Gave us a breath of fresh air. Yeah, another question. Yeah, kind of. After myself. What do you mean? Who's my favourite Doctor Who man after myself? No. I mean, Andrew, Matthew Waterhouse is a really nice guy. He just can't act. No, I don't mean that in a mean way. The guy's not an actor. I mean, if you can just be picked up from the street and act, that's fine. In which case, I wasted 10 years of my life learning how to act. In which case, it was a complete waste of time, me going to the Royal Academy. It was a complete waste of time, me working in theatre and learning the grassroots. It wasn't a complete waste of time. it's not easy. You can't just act. Acting is highly technical. And when you start casting people, just picking them off the street and putting them in television programs, you get problems. Right? You get problems because they don't know about camera technique. They don't, and they can't cope with all the other things to do with acting. So, you know, Matthew's great, and Matthew's grown up to be a really nice guy, but he had really bad, it's also slightly immoral. He had really bad problems being cast in Doctor Who, suddenly being launched into this life he knew nothing about. So, you know, he writes quite nice poetry as well, Matthew, just as a matter of course. Who's my favourite companion? Well, I liked working with Janet, but that's because I like Janet. I like Sarah as well, but Janet and I are sort of similar people. So yeah, I like Janet's character. I mean, amongst the others, I can't really say. They're as distant to me as they are to you, probably more so, because when you were watching Doctor Who, I was watching Captain Scarlet. No, I didn't have a television when I was a kid. I was brought up in the country, and I didn't have a television, so I didn't watch Doctor Who. And when I got cast on Doctor Who, I didn't realise what was going to happen to my life. I didn't realise it was a cold open. I thought it was just, I mean, I've been working on a soap called Angels, playing a blooming ambulance man called Teddy. And, you know, I was doing the sort of stuff that, you know, I mean, a bit different to Doctor Who. Doctor Who is, you know, green slimy monster appears at the end of the corridor. Oh my God, green slimy monster, act frightened. Ah! It's great. Because it's not easy to do. I'll talk to you about that. Not easy to do. It's much more difficult to sit in the hospital in Birmingham and say, Alison, what are you doing for all your noise? And Alison looks at you gormlessly and says, well, I was just wondering if you thought to come out with me, you know. And, yeah, I mean, that sort of stuff is really difficult to do because it's bad. Difficulty goes with badness. There's an interesting point. You can't wander on for ages. There's an interesting point about acting. People say about actors, oh, I thought he was wonderful. I thought he gave a fantastic performance. Usually, the script was good if you say that. And usually it was on film. An ashtray, filmed on real film, is more interesting than Laurence Olivier giving the best performance of his life on video. Video makes it flat. Film is in total 3D. So when you assess actors' performances, you remember one the script, and one whether it was on film or video. There are a lot of very good actors in soaps, but the odds are stacked against you. I mean, you know, sit on a horse with a wonderful Australian sunset behind you on film that costs $800 a second to shoot. You'll look great. And people will think you'll look interesting as well. Whereas if you sit in the hospital in Birmingham and say, what are you doing for all, you know, maybe you look commercially. And they won't think they're terribly interesting. So it was a bit of a relief to do Doctor Who. But it's an interesting thing about Doctor Who that it's interesting about science fiction. Science fiction has to be real. Now, it isn't real. Life is not about green slimy monsters coming down the corridors at you. It is going to see your doctor soon. You've got a problem. Life, honestly, believe me, is not about that. But it has to be real for you. And I've got a script here that I was just showing two friends of mine at the back. It gives you some good examples. I mean, you know, we have scene 2, interior spaceship. First thing Turlo said is, what are you doing? I was explaining, this is television. It's not radio. Surely we know what the other character is doing. We then look at him. But on Doctor Who, there are lots of lines like that. I used to get into terrible trouble because there are two ways of saying a line like that. You can look at a television screen, right? It's flashing away on the TARDIS. And there's a green blob on it. And, well, hopefully there's a green blob on it. Usually there isn't. Usually you have to imagine there's a green blob on it because special effects haven't got it together to get a green blob on. So it's a budget, you know, can't afford plots on budget. You just imagine them now. So you have a line and it says, what's that, Doctor? Sounds easy, doesn't it? What's that, Doctor? Fine. Ah. If you say, what's that, Doctor, you come across as a right thicko, right? And the Doctor says, oh, that's an intergalactic spaceship about to bomb the shit out of us. He knows that. Why the fuck don't you? Surely you've seen a green blob before. You've managed to get your spacecraft from the other side of the universe to here, and you don't know that's an face, you're about to bomb the shit out of you. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So what you say is, what's that, Doctor? Ah, you know what that is. You have implied. Unfortunately, you now get a situation where John Nathan Turner sits Janet Fielding, me and Pete Davidson around the table and says, we've got a problem. We've got 3 doctors in this programme. And it was a problem. Janet is quite sort of women's livish, like she used to be. Janet is currently running away from the Israeli Secret Service. Do you know about that? Well, woke you up, did it, Nicky? Janet's ex-husband is a guy called Nick. Nick was, just to tie this in with Robert Maxwell for you, right? Janet's ex-husband was a guy called Nick, right? Nick was a guy who was political editor of the Daily Mirror. And we often thought that they had a lot of money. Nick seemed to have a lot of money. And we thought he must have private money, you know, just family money like people in England do have. What we didn't realise is he was one of the most powerful gun runners in the world. And Janet arrived on our doorstep in London one night, and she's in a real state. She said, look, I think Nick's running arms to South Africa. I should point out the Daily Mirror is a left-wing paper. It's a socialist paper in England, right? And she had married Nick because she aspired to his ideals about South Africa and things. She found out he was leading a completely double life. He had 3 passports. He was 2 different people, 3 different people, 4 different people. And the reason kerfuffle with Robert Maxwell, who did not come in certified, right, is to do with the fact that Nick was actually taken to court with a guy from the Israeli Secret Service for gun running all over the world. And pictures of Nick, you know, with Kalashnikov rifles, you know, wandering through places in America. And Janet was eventually persuaded to produce some papers that she got from Nick in court. I've been trying to get through to Janet, and I've had a message back from her, but she's in hiding on that from the Israeli Secret Service. So, life is stranger than fiction. It's the moral in that. That's the strange thing about acting. You meet all sorts of strange people. I think I've got a bit off track, haven't I? Somebody asked me a question. Oh, I have just recently been asked to return to Doctor Who's solo. I get asked that once every 2 weeks, actually. This letter comes to the post that says, oh, we've just put in a bid to the BBC to make Doctor Who. We were wondering if you'd like to recreate your character as Turlo. I always answer yes. It depends how much you're paying me. There is a company in Canada who have actually put quite a serious bid in. So there's a possibility of that coming through. I know, before you ask, no more about whether Doctor Who will be continued than you do. Alright? I mean, basically the BBC have given it up. And, you know, for whatever reason. So, yeah.
Well, did you film a lot of episodes with inquiries, bombs and the like?
Yeah. There's another reason I left England. Like, filming in England is not a joke. It's awful. The last thing I did for England was a play called Looking Back, which was a play for Channel 4. And we had this really lovely scene at the end. It was about this absolute shit of a guy whose marriage broke up because he was an absolute shit of a guy on a board. I was playing shit of a guy on a board. It wasn't typecast. I had this lovely scene at the end, which was supposed to be set in this old tin mine in Birmingham. That's where I come from. That's what I talk about later. It's where I come from, Birmingham anyway. And it had to be nice weather. That was the whole point. We waited 3 days for nice weather. And then they had to cover the whole of the tin mine over, light it, and shoot it. It took 12 hours to light, and we had to shoot it as if it was open air. I mean, it's just a huge problem. And when you go filming in England, the cameraman constantly has an eyeglass on his eye, and he's looking cloud to light. You have to match the shots. It doesn't exist in Australia. You don't have clouds. But I mean, it's true. It's a great place to film. It's wonderful. You can get filming done in a third of the time. In England, you have to match light for light, and the light is constantly changing. It makes it very expensive to shoot in the UK, which is why another reason the British film industry went down the drain. It's a hell of a lot cheaper to shoot in Australia, which is why most of the Arabs in the world are shot in Australia, because you know what weather's going to be like. It's a hell of a lot cheaper to shoot in, what's that place, Hollywood, you know? Because the weather's good. It's great, yeah. Did I do much stage work whilst I was working on TV? No, because I was working my arse off when I was working on TV. But have I done much stage work? Yes. The last thing I did, just before I left, was a big tour of Ibsen's Ghosts, playing a character called Oswald. If you don't know the play, Oswald gets hereditary venereal disease from his father. And it's not funny, especially if you've got to act it every night. Anyway, it's one of those, you know, what we treat as serious, right? I mean, I suppose it was a serious play at the time, but, you know, it starts off, and people pay to see this. It's raining, right? It's raining. It always is in Norway. And Ibsen is a serious writer, by the way. And you get this guy walking in, and, you know, you get about 2 acts of absolute blur and nonsense and sort of silly stuff. And then he dies on stage in appalling agony, taking about 40 minutes at it. I came off one night, and there was somebody who'd seen me in Doctor Who and came backstage and they said, "Excuse me, Mr. Strickson, I just found your performance disgusting tonight." So I said, "Well, you know, it's not very nice watching people die, is it?" There are 2 sorts of actors. There are dirty actors and there are clean actors. I am a dirty actor. I'll give you an example of a clean actor. Film Gandhi, Ben Kingsley. Ben is such a clean actor, like squeaky clean. This Indian comes up to Ben playing Gandhi, who is supposed to be starving, right? He's on his last legs, and the Indian comes up and says, "Master, master, you must eat, master." And there's Ben sitting there with his pot belly sticking out of his mouth. That's a clean actor. A dirty actor is somebody like me, who wets themselves and pukes on stage when they're dying. It's not funny to watch, it's horrible. That's the way I act when I need to act that sort of thing. I teach a lot at the moment, acting. And the most difficult thing to teach about acting is its reality. Acting is taking your clothes off in public, emotional clothes. Sometimes taking your other clothes off. It's far less embarrassing to take off your other clothes than it is your emotional clothes. It's the far most difficult thing to learn about acting. How do you take your emotional clothes off in public? I don't know. You do it enough times and you get sort of immune to it, I suppose. I've dressed it on again, haven't I? Somebody else made another question. Yes.
Taking off your emotional clothes, is that different with television? Do you have to do it less or more?
No, you have to do it less. I mean, Doctor Who, you don't take off any emotional clothes at all. Because life isn't about big green fluffy monsters coming down corridors. Yeah, much less in television because you hardly ever asked it. And basically because it's more embarrassing if somebody takes their clothes off in your sitting room than they do so on the stage. This is what I always felt about working in a hospital soap. That I really didn't want to watch at 6:30 at night when I was having supper, somebody having a collapsed bowel or something. And I got, you see, I'm really depressed working on this hospital soap. But when you say things like collapsed bowels or prolapses or, you know, it's terrible. So Doctor Who, I mean, that's why, I think Doctor Who is quite fun in that way. I mean, I don't see how anybody could be offended by Doctor Who except Resurrection of the Daleks, in which policemen were shot up. You probably know about that, but, I mean, it is true that when Doctor Who first got the sort of slice taken to it, was Michael Gray took over as controller of the BBC, and he went to watch 2 episodes of Doctor Who, and he had Resurrection of the Daleks taken up. And they are about the most unrepresentative of Doctor Who out. It was the first time on British television you'd seen a copper shoot somebody. For those of you who haven't seen it, it starts off with a shot of a guy on the side of the Thames with a metal detector. And this copper, who is in fact a Dalek, but we don't know it, you know, he's being controlled by the Daleks, gets a gun out and puts a dum-dum bullet through this guy's body, you know. This old guy. Michael Gray sees this and he says, "This is children's television? This is Doctor Who? Stop, you know?" And I don't blame him in all honesty. Where did I get from there? Oh, yeah, taking your emotional clothes off. It's very, very draining on stage. I mean, after doing Ibsen's Ghosts, I did a tour for 2.5 months. I was completely shattered. And I used to look out at the audience every night and think, I know you need entertaining, but do I really have to do it? I think possibly then you should stop being an actor. Or certainly stop doing that sort of thing, which is in fact what I did. I emigrated to Australia. That's one of the crucial things. I really didn't feel it was for me. I don't get a kick out of appearing on stage. If you don't, I don't think you should do it, because it just becomes hard work, however good you are at it. If you get a kick out of it, great. If you don't, what are you doing it for? Yeah? Yeah.
What was it like working with people today?
Well, it's quite nice. People always think it's strange working with actors. We're very normal people. Honestly, we are. We're very normal. But it is true. I mean, Pete's turning up. Peter is so bloody normal. I mean, he's just... No, he's not. Well, he is, he's boring. Pete is boring. He's very nice, but he is a bit boring. I mean, he's sweet, but I mean, Janet and I go mad with him. I've actually got him drinking brandy, which was an improvement. Would loosen him up a bit. But, I mean, you'd go down there, he'd have half a bottle of Lieberfrau in the fridge and it'd been there for 3 months. You know? No, I mean, Pete ever tonight is just a different sort of person to me and a different sort of person to Janet and whatever. It amazes me he ever became an actor. He's very successful. And one of the reasons I think he's very successful is he looks like the next door neighbour, and he looks like the next door neighbour in the UK, and I think that works. Maybe he doesn't like your next door neighbour. Maybe you wish your next door neighbour looked like his. Okay. But I mean, he's a sweet guy. Actors in general tend to be very nice, because if you're not nice, you don't get paid, people don't want to work with you. The reason that most people get hired again is not because they're wonderfully skillful or whatever, it's because you enjoy working with them once if you're a director or a producer, so you enjoy working with them again, you think, And that's how I got the job on Doctor Who. John Nathan Turner's living boyfriend, Gary Downey, had been working with me on Angels, and I had applied for it. But my agent had put me up for this job on Doctor Who, and John sort of said to Gary, what's Mark like? And Gary said, well, he learns his lines, he's there on time, sometimes sober, he's good for feeling. We've been having a nice time in Birmingham, I think you can have some fun with him, and he's efficient at his job. That's how I got the job. Don't think it was anything to do with walking in an office and being enormously more talented than anybody else. How can you prove that when you walk in an office? You can't. I just got on very well with John. He knew I did my job well, and he knew I was a safe bet. And he had just had one bet go down. Matthew. He needed somebody who was highly reliable, who was going to produce the goods at the end of the day. Which was me. And John was ever so nice to me. We used to go to the bar after the afternoon shooting. Never used to give me lines in the evening. I just used to stand there swaying. It's true. You always the same I'm swaying. John always had one rule, which was that it didn't matter what you did, so long as you were there and you did your job. It didn't matter if you were up till 5, it didn't matter if you didn't go to bed, so long as you were there and you did your job. And I'll put this on video, but you know how to tell John Nathan Turner I did. I hate being filmed when I'm doing these things because I tell people things I shouldn't do. I don't repeat any of this. When I was filming Lanzarote, I had a big night out with John. I mean, God knows where we ended up. We used to go to this place called the Pig and Strumpet, this nightclub. Well, we didn't say Pig and Strumpet. I know there was a guy from the Daily Mirror with us who was taking the piss out of us for about a day until he got grabbed by this large German woman and we blackmailed him that we'd tell his wife for the next 6 days, and he left us alone wonderfully. He didn't take any compromising photos because we had a very compromising one of him. I remember one morning I got up and I thought, shit, I feel terrible. And I went to open the balcony doors, and there was a knock on the door, and it was June, the production manager, saying, Mark, bus leaves in 5 minutes. Okay, June, on my way. And yeah, I'm just trying to extract my tongue from the pillow. And it fucks me costume. And that's another story in itself. When I went on this filming to Lanzarote, you think I was bad when I lived with you. When I woke up, and the alarm can't have gone off. I was on the boat, I was on the Grand Union Canal, and my flight was due to leave in an hour's time. And everybody was at the airport by this point, panicking, where was Mark? They held the flight for me. I got a taxi. I just woke up, ran out in the clothes I was in, grabbed a taxi and got to the airport, and ran across the airport and got on the plane. I got to Lanzarote, I had no clothes with me. I had the clothes I was turning up in. I hadn't packed a suitcase or anything. And so the first night I was there, I rang up reception. They'd taken away my costume, and I was sitting there in nothing. That was it. Because my clothes were dirty, I sent them to the laundry that morning, and they had assured me they would be back by that night. Which, when you only have one set of clothes, is rather important. My costume was taken away. I was sitting in my underpants and turtleneck socks. I had no clothes in the wardrobe, which was nowhere to go to me. I was due to go out with the dignitaries of Lanzarote in about an hour's time, and all I had was a pair of underpants and socks. Pink fluorescent socks. John Nathan Turner shows them impeccable taste. I digress. When I initially had my costume, I'll come back to that story. When I initially had my costume made for Doctor Who, John said to me, I think, you should have some input on your costume, Mark. It was the only time I was allowed input in the rest of my time on the programme. And he said, fine. So I went off and I bought this costume. It seems to me there are always bloody cheerful people walking around the Doctor Who. How nice pyjama suits on, or fluorescent clothes on. I mean, like Peter, with his celery sticks and his stripes everywhere and whatever. So I came back in this rather nice black suit and, whatever, and John said, Mark, you look like a funeral director. I said, I know. That's what I'm supposed to look like, John. It's an evil character. He said, well, you need to brightening up, Mark. So I said, well, okay, John, you can choose the socks. And he did. And if you watch the first episode I did in Doctor Who, you'll actually see shots of my foot going against the car pedal, and you'll see the socks that John had bought, and they're red and white, those particular ones. Which brings me back to Lanzarote. I'm sitting in this hotel room in Lanzarote, and I ring them up downstairs, and I say, Mr. Strickson, here, I was wondering where my clothes were that I had sent out to laundry this morning. Oh, not a problem, so I'll be with you by the end of tomorrow. Yes, no, problem. His problem, I have no clothes. And I managed to explain to them what the problem was. And I got sent up a waiter's pair of trousers, and a waiter's jacket, and a white shirt. To this day, I envisage this waiter all night sitting downstairs in his underpants. Unable to work for the night. All I know is people kept asking me for drinks all night, and the Lanzarotean dignitaries wanted to find out they had a waiter playing one of the lead parts. Which brings me somewhere back. Now we're back to Lanzarote and John Nathan Turner about getting up in the morning and being able to work when you've had too much to drink. Right. So I go to the window, and it's complicated, isn't it? It's difficult to keep up, I know. Anyway, I go to the window, and I open the window, and I think, oh, Jesus, cut the air in here. Do not hold on, this is a reminder, reprieve, like they have on the soap operas, so I have to go through it again. I said, so I think, yes, be down there in 5 minutes. I go to the bathroom, right, wash myself up, right, put on my costume, whatever, and I said, this is so bad in here, and I'll air the place. So I go open the big open doors, the balcony and the curtain, and as I go, I trip over something, and there's 2 twin beds, and I've been sleeping in the one next to the bathroom, and there's something wedged between the other bed and the door to the balcony. It's a body. It's John Nathan Turner. So I was able to say to my producer, John, Coach is leaving in 2 minutes. I walked out the door. But on the other hand, I had to work. He didn't. He's right. John actually likes the gallery, is one of my best friends. I will not have a word said against John. Somebody asked me another question. You never know where we'll go. Yeah.
How do you find work in Australia?
I find work in Australia. Have you not seen me starring in a throat spray commercial? If you want to be an actor, get on the boat and get out. I left England because I didn't want to be an actor anymore. I wanted to do other things, which is why I'm being zoology at university. There isn't an acting business in Australia. It's hardly surprising. You have a population the size of London. How the hell can you support one? You only did so by sort of massive subsidy by tax losses by industry, which I think is a jolly good thing, right? And I think you made some really good stuff. But you have no industry. There is enough work in England and in European countries and in America to support you as a working actor. I didn't do anything else except act. I acted. That was my job. It has a proper pay structure. I had a pension scheme of all things, all that sort of thing. Right? There's enough work. in Australia you have to have a part-time job at something. I mean, there just isn't enough work. Even people who so-called famous actors have another job. And the pay is appalling. That's why most commercials are made in Australia, because it's a third world economy here. You make, I mean, you make them for a 12th of the price you can anywhere else in the world. And if you put the prices up, well, they'll go probably to South America and make them. I mean, it's a catch-22 situation. What do you do? So as far as being an actor in Australia is concerned, yeah, I mean, it's fine. I mean, I've done some of the ABC, some ABC radio, lots of little bits on television. But I mean, I'm English. What the hell am I doing in Australia if I want to be an actor? I don't. I'm reading zoology. It's a fantastic place to read zoology. Yes. Another question. Yeah.
Do you find problems with typecasting when you're asked you've got...
Well, yeah, I do. I mean, I do find a problem with typecasting. I can never quite understand it. When I was at RADA, I won the comedy prize. I mean, I don't think I'm completely unamusing. And I love comedy. I love making people laugh. I mean, people say, who's your acting hero? I said my acting hero is Tony Hancock. Some of you probably never heard of him. He's an English comedian. Right? If you have heard of him, there you go. But I mean, I suppose he's like, I mean, I don't have heroes. I think heroes are a very bad idea. But I mean, I love Tony Hancock's work. And I think he's great. What was the question? Typecasting, yes. But Terence Dix wrote me a reference once saying, Mark is wonderfully good at playing devious characters. You know, I got fed up of playing devious characters, and the only time I've ever played a nice character I ended up being nasty. I don't quite know why. I mean, I flatter myself I have a brain. It isn't something that's common amongst actors. I don't mean that as a joke. Acting is completely unintellectual skill. Don't let anybody fool you that it isn't. It's completely unintellectual. You do not need a brain to act, right? Absolutely not. It sometimes gets in the way a hell of a lot. Right? Because you start to express opinions, and directors do not want your opinion, they want you to do it like they want it, right? Certainly it's been a problem for me. But if you do express opinions and you are intelligent, people think you're a serious person, so you get cast as serious people. You don't get cast in comedy. Which I always hated. And I love comedy, and I haven't done any since I left RADA where I won the comedy prize. So there you go. Yeah, typecasting is comedy. You get cast in the same thing again and again and again and again. My poor mum used to say, Mark, why can't you speak in a nice voice and play a nice part on television? You know, as if I had any choice. I play, you know, murderers and thugs and violent people. There are reasons for it. I have very bright blue eyes. They come up very strongly on camera. I look very strong on camera. I look very threatening. For whatever reasons, camera does strange things to people. So there are those. The last part I did before I left the UK was the part of a gynecological surgeon on a show called Casualty. And you'll excuse me, I finished my last exam yesterday at 5:30, and I got on the overnight coach to get here today, so I'm not exactly at my sparkling best. And in Casualty, I played a gynecological surgeon, and I had a bow tie. I sat down for the first time in 10 years on television. That is a crucial point in an actor's life. People write these television things, and young people don't sit down. You ever notice that? You never get to see where young people are sitting down. They're standing at the bar. They're walking around. You know, they're on the beach walking along. They're in the shop, standing up shopping. Running down corridors. As soon as you get to old people, they're at the table. Middle-aged people, which is 35 onwards, they're sitting having a chat at the kitchen table. They're sat at the bar. They're behind a desk, sitting. Right? I sat down. For the first time in 10 years, I had a chair. It was wonderful. I had gynecological surgeon. My mum thought it was great. After the first episode, she said, she read the better. I was in Australia by this point. And she said, oh, Mark, you looked lovely on television last night. And you looked so handsome. Because of course my mother really wants me to be a gynecological surgeon, not an actor, you see. She wants me to be a vet, not an actor, you know. But unfortunately, in the third episode, I did the first abortion on British television. All I can say is I hope that my mother didn't ask the neighbours round for that episode. I got through 58 pairs of rubber gloves. I felt completely nauseated by the end of the day. I mean, I suppose these things have to be on television, but yet again, I wouldn't want to watch it when I was having my supper. But the problem for me as an actor, this is something, I like Doctor Who, you see. I've got affection for Doctor Who, but a lot of the other work I did, I used to think, oh dear, do I have to watch this as well? You're supposed to be interested in your own work. It was, a bit of a problem. However, I learned to shut up in the end. Maturity brought some grace with it. You may not believe that looking at me now. A question? No bid. Another question. Somebody else another question. Yes. Is it true? Is it what? Purple Death. Purple Death? What's Purple Death? No. Bruce, I probably was addicted to Purple Death. I don't remember a lot of my life, unfortunately. How much did you any drink? It doesn't matter what's going down. No, I've got better. Since I have been studying biology and chemistry and maths, I've given up alcohol. It is one of the sort of hazards of our business in a way. You work until late at night, and then you're supposed to go to sleep. You have a massive amount of adrenaline going through. Well, you can't sleep. But you're supposed to be at rehearsal at 10 o'clock next morning. Well, what do? I'm sure this is partly to do with why I have to drink a lot. You need some sort of alcohol, a very powerful sedative. You need some sort of sedative to calm you. And I think this is one reason why I have to drink. Certainly, if you just finished a television studio at 10 o'clock at night and you're expected to be in at 10 the next morning, you're going like this at the end of the television studio. You're having to get it in time. You're on the ball. You've got a massive amount of adrenaline pumping through you. They say going on stage is only equivalent, the only equivalent we know in the amount of adrenaline that's being pumped through you is like having a car crash. If any of you have ever been near a car crash, you'll understand how much adrenaline is going through you. It's incredible. And I've always said in the past, it's like taking an exam. It's nothing like that at all. I'm now back at university. It's nothing like that. Taking an exam is like falling off your bike as far as getting on stage and being performed in front of 6,000 people is concerned. There's no comparison at all. So, I mean, yeah, that's why I'm addicted to Purple Death and anything, Yeah, you need time to calm down. Sometimes you need some courage to face people. I don't think this is a weakness. I think this is that you haven't got that within you. If you're wonderfully confident and stride out there to entertain the masses and think about sun shines out of your arsehole, I think you'll be a shit-ass performer. There's a story about Jack Jones. You probably don't even know who Jack Jones is. He's a singer. Yeah? No? No, Jack Jones is an American singer. Right? He's sort of a famous light music singer in America. Jack went to an agent, and he was about 20 at the time. Jack Jones got a fantastic voice. He's sort of a famous light music singer in America. Jack went to an agent, and he was about 20 at the time. Jack Jones got a fantastic voice. And he sold the agent a love song. And the agent said, "That was very good, Jack. I think you're very, very talented. Come back when you fall in love." So, Jack Jones went away. He came back about 4 years later. He sang the same song. The agent said, "Jack, you've fallen in love." Jack said, "Yeah, I have." He said, "Come back when you've fallen out of love." It's true. That in the same way as what I'm saying about drink. If you haven't got that essential weakness in you, if you don't understand people's weaknesses, if you don't understand how people tick, if you can just get on the stage and not feel anything, then maybe you're not going to be very good. I'm not defending alcohol in my business. I'm saying it's a perfectly natural reaction to being under intense stress. You need something. Yeah. Wow, how did we get there? Depends on Purple Death. What was I drinking? Tell me what Purple Death is.
It's a mixture of
You sure this was me?
yeah, you're totally
Oh no, totally. I think we'll leave it alone. I was totally right. Somebody else asked a nice question, please. Yeah, somebody, yeah.
What would be the ideal role for you if you could get involved in a play? And where would you go?
Well, I suppose I'm headed towards, the reason why I'm reading zoology is because I looked at television, I wanted to be David Attenborough, not Richard Attenborough. That is a true statement. I essentially was more interested in programs like that than I was becoming in drama, which is what I'm doing. The ideal role for any actor is what happened to Peter Davison when he got cast as Tristram. Tristram is Peter. Peter doesn't act to play Tristram. If you can get that role, it's your ideal role. Actors wait a lifetime for it. Peter was immensely lucky. Some actors never get it. Alec Guinness, who people think is one of the most famous British actors, his big bitterness was he'd never been given the part he wanted, which was Alec Guinness. He was known as a great character actor. He didn't want to be a character actor. He wanted to be a star. And stars act themselves. How do you get back yourself? Somebody writes a part that is you in the first place, and from then on you act yourself. Unfortunately, nobody's ever written a part about me. What the hell, I didn't play it. It's so difficult to sort of play, some characters I've played, like that in a soap opera, playing somebody from Birmingham who's, a bit of a slob and, and all that sort of thing. That's acting. It's terribly hard. Playing something like Markham in David Copperfield like I did, a drunk, that's acting. Very hard. I'll tell you a funny story. I had some friends in Hastings, and they had some foreign lodgers, and they had this BBC Classics on, and Margaret was in the kitchen cooking supper, and she heard this voice on the television, and she said, "That's Mark! That's Mark on the television!" So out she runs, saying, "I know him anywhere, he's always drunk!" She said, "I only recognise you, Mark, and I recognise your voice. You sound like that when you're in the sitting room in your cups." Thank you, Margaret. But essentially there's a bit of truth in that. You can only play what is in your experience to some extent. On television, I have to say. Again, life isn't about murdering people, hopefully, for most people. So, if when you're playing Macbeth, you actually go through the whole process of trying to murder somebody every night, you've blown it. You need acting technique. But television, where the camera's there, he looks inside you. Very much on television, it's a help to be able to act from experience. Frequently in these big sort of violent, pseudo-violent films, which I hate, it's why I looked up to because it's not violent. I've got a big thing against violence on television. They'll pan back with the camera at the violent moment because they want you to see the act of violence, and no actor is capable of acting it. You can't keep in on the face. And it's a strange thing. Watch it and think about that. And think about what the coroner said the other day. It's all true. We know violence on television causes violence in society. We know. We have known for many years. Don't let anybody kid you in any other way. There we are. There we are. Yes, another question, please. Yes.
Me? So what are you going to do with your zoology?
I don't know. I don't know how I became an actor. Oh, I do know how I became an actor. I was in the National Youth Theatre. Oh, well, I was in the National Youth Orchestra, actually. And they wanted some music written for the National Youth Theatre. And I went along and wrote the music. And I worked my arse off. And it seemed to me the actors had a pretty easy time. They just sort of, got on stage, didn't have to practice every day like I did. Got a lot more girls. So I thought, I'll become an actor. And I did. I'd love to be like one of these people who said, when I was 6, I built this little theatre out of cardboard, and I had little puppets, and I invited all the neighbours round, and everybody paid sixpence, and we did Robinson Crusoe. Do me a favour. Does anybody do that? Do you know anybody who's done that in their back garden? It's a complete myth. You've done it in your back garden. No. You're going to ask a question. I'll be with you in a minute. But I didn't do that. I drifted into acting. I knew sure at the age of 18 I didn't want to go to university. I had to go and read English or something like that. I didn't want to do that. And so I applied to the Royal Academy and I got in and I became an actor. It wasn't a very conscious decision on my point. Maybe that's why I'm now sort of leading acting. when I say it, you know, I adore acting in some ways. It's great, you know. It's given me a bit of a kick. I like it. But what was your question in the first place?
What are you going to do with your degree?
Well, I do what you I don't know. I honestly don't know. But do most people know what they're going to do with their degree? I don't think they do. I like the process of growth. I'm trying to become the Renaissance man, you know? I don't think we should. I don't think I should have given up chemistry at 12. I don't think I should have given up physics at 12. I think it's a mad educational system which let me do that. I want to become balanced in my education. That's what I'm doing at the moment, and maybe when I've done that, I go back into acting or back into the media. I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah.
I thought it was interesting how you were talking about violence on television and stuff. When you actually came onto the show with your character making your character had the intention of killing the doctor.
Yeah, he's bloody failure, right? I mean,
himself by the black guardian.
Yeah, the first 8 episodes relied upon terminal stupidity from both me and the doctor. I mean, there's this guy behind you with a rock, and you don't think anything of it. You come into the TARDIS, it's smoking, there's a guy holding something underneath it. What do you think he's doing? Bird watching? I mean, yeah. I mean, Doctor Who's fantasy, all right? It's not reality. I mean, I do like Doctor Who because it is environment. And I just think, I've got a guy with, a guy who watches in my house. I share my house with a guy called Robert. And Robert, what he does, he tells me I'm not violent. I know there's people having their stomachs being shot out, and arms missing, you know, and things. This isn't violence, this is midnight television, you know, mid-evening television. It's perfectly acceptable. Well, I just don't think it is acceptable. I don't want to watch it. And it's quite interesting. I mean, I've been studying psychology quite many hours. I mean, if you show a cartoon if you show a violent cartoon, if you show a film of children kicking shit out of a dummy, and you then put one lot of children in who've seen that video into a room that contains an identical dummy, and you put another lot of children who haven't watched that into the room with the identical dummy, they've watched a film of children playing positively with this toy. The children that have watched the film where they've been beating shit out of it immediately go and beat shit out of the dummy. The other children play positively with it. I mean, it's as simple as that, and that's what the coroner was talking about the other day. It's not a case of opinion, it's absolute fact. And as far as I'm concerned, it's like the death penalty. If one innocent person dies from the death penalty, you shouldn't have the death penalty. It takes one innocent person, that's as much as I'm concerned with. And if one person, one mentally imbalanced person, is instigating to pick up a machine gun and kill people, that's enough for me. You stop it. And that's, you know, that's the bottom line, as far as I'm concerned. And you're paying me for my opinion still, so somebody asked me another question. Yeah.
Have you worked professionally with one of our other guests, Katie Manning, or recently involved in each other with...
No, I haven't, no. I mean, Katie had left England by the time I was, in many ways, by the time I was a pro actor over the floor. That's the set. You have to learn what is on the set, right? You go through and do your lines, you mark them, and you mark your camera angles, or your initial camera angles. Then you do it. And you do it so the director can see it, and the director follows you around going like this, trying to get his camera angles go. He repops bits of it. You're into about Thursday by this point. You then do a no words run, which I thought to do is quite important because a lot of the things have no words. I remember one technical run where we had 20 minutes of Nick Courtney walking around in absolute silence for the first 20 minutes. It wasn't silence on television, there were lots of things laid on. As far as rehearsal was concerned, there were no words. Then John Nathan Turner, or whoever the producer comes in, sees a run, sees the shots, sees what the director's put together, says some things work, some things don't. You quickly put it together again, you're in the studio. That's how you work. This is something about it being completely unintellectual. There's no input from you. You learn the words, you learn the moves, and you do it, and there's not time to do anything else. That's it. That does become a bit boring. Hopefully the end product isn't boring. I mean, it's like somebody making a BMW, being on or a Porsche, being on an assembly line. Their job can be boring, but it's pretty exciting to drive the end too. And maybe that's what television's about. it's producing this product, and you're a small bit in that, then hopefully the end product's exciting, but sure as hell, your bit is very exciting to do. I hope that isn't depressing for you. That's not acting as acting is at its best, right? It's different. But, I mean, having said that, there are many other compensations. Many of my best friends to this day I met through Doctor Who, and I have a lovely time. So, you know, it's about other things as well. People often put up with a boring job for ages because their working conditions are nice, they're working with nice people and they're having a nice time. I had a nice time at Doctor Who, I was working with nice people, and so on, you know. So it was good. But one of the contributory reasons towards me leaving Doctor Who and towards me leaving British television was the fact that the BBC rehearsal rooms are in the middle of a traffic island in the west of London. There's no way you can go for a walk at lunchtime. You can't go to a shop. There's a pub and a bank. Which says it all, doesn't it, really? This is about what they think about actors, actually. Money to spend on drink. So they can get through the afternoon. But it was miserable. You know, I couldn't go for a walk or do anything on. So, yeah, strange old world, isn't it? Another question. Yes.
What's your favourite Doctor Who monster?
What's my favourite Doctor Who monster? I don't have one. Because the ones I didn't work with. Now, Doctor Who monsters, they're a problem, okay? Lack of budget is the problem. It's also the joy of Doctor Who, you know? I like, if you watch Doctor Who and you think it's funny, I think your heart's in the right place in a way. The Americans watch it and fall out laughing. I think that's good in some way. It's great. If you take Doctor Who seriously, you can't take Doctor Who seriously. I mean, we used to get in there every week and the TARDIS would be set up completely differently. And you'd say, look, I'm sure that wall wasn't there last week. And they said, oh no, well, we can't fit it in this week, and they've got a big set down the back there, and we've got to get it all in this studio. Nobody will notice, mate. You know, like you turn round for the screen, and the screen will be there. Look where the screen was, it'll be over there this week. Oh, right, you know. Oh, don't worry, we'll shoot it from a different angle. No, you'll notice. Of course people notice, you know. The screen's great. I mean, the screen was working on a bicycle chain, like this. There's a little man, and the Doctor would press this button on the TARDIS. The little man would go, and he would go, and jolt up. The whole screen was white when you saw it on television. They did it electrically. He went, but if you're in the studio, it makes you fall out. It's a complete joke. The TARDIS is great because nothing works on the TARDIS at all. There's only one lever that works, and that's the big red one with the thingy on the end, right? Which nobody's answered except the Doctor, so you can forget about that. Right? All the screens are blank, none of the things work, so you see these people going, you know, like the wooden top, anything from the wooden top? Oh, Bill and Ben, on it. And that's all laid on by the sound people afterwards. So you can wreck somebody else's performance. You don't like this guy has been giving you the shit in the person. You're in the background, there's a camera there. He's there, right? Camera's over there. You get here. TARDIS, console there. Big scene by guy on left. He doesn't notice a thing. He's in front of you. The camera doesn't notice a thing. But when they get it into the lab, they realise there should be sound. Big emotional scene, my character on left, packed up with wrecks on this phone. Peter and I actually, despite our differences, and I'm a very different person to Peter, we're very similar actors, and we're both highly technical, to a fault. It got to the point where Peter and I were completely sort of just getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. I was filming in Wales, and Julie, my wife, was there, and she said, she came with me after one take, and she said, Mark, nobody can hear what you and Peter are saying. It may be great for you two, but it's shit out for the camera. And it was. I mean, she was right. We both thought we both thought we were film actors, you know, and the camera was 40 foot away with a howling wind on a Welsh mountain. Forget it, you know, we were on Doctor Who shout. Which is one of the things you have to take into account when you're working with Doctor Who. There's a lot of background noise. You've got to keep your volume up. It's not close-in stuff at all. There's a lot of noise on Doctor Who sometimes, like explosions. Explosions are wonderful. I remember once Lisa Goddard and what's his name? Dominic Gard. See, I get mixed up. Lisa Goddard and Dominic Gard. You know, difficult. My memory's got better since I started doing chemistry. I've got my brain into action. It's another reason I started studying. I thought if I didn't do it now, I'd never resuscitate the old grey matter. So they had this explosion to do, and they put this stuff like putty on the side of the spaceship, and it was supposed to blow up. And the BBC special effects can do one of two things: either nothing happens, or the whole studio goes. And on this case, the whole studio went, and it was the same time that the 9 o'clock news was going out in the next. You got the guy sitting there doing the news. In the background, and immediately you think the IRA had to go at TV Centre. If you're reading the news, you know, I mean, what do you think? He didn't flinch much, and it was interesting to play it back. Probably you've all heard this story, but Lisa Goddard was seen behind her helmet going, what the fuck was that? And she had to lay some lines on, like, oh my goodness, what a big noise. Absolutely true. I mean, there's something like what happens with monsters, but, okay, this is advanced wardrobe design. If you put a plastic bubble over somebody's head with no breathing holes, it will steam up. So what do? They produce big plastic bubbles for the two of them with no breathing holes. So we had to do it in sort of 10-second shoots with wiping them down with tissues every drove you mad in the end. I could go on and on about monsters. Oh, the other one that I will tell you about the tractators, because they were wonderful. It's just a classic story about Doctor Who. We had these things called tractators, and they were supposed to be wormy things, and they were supposed to crawl around you. I now know they're called cattycobids. Showing off. Anyway, these wormy things, which is a better description. We did all this wonderful stuff in rehearsal with them twining around us. These massive troop of black guys, dancers come in, they took paid vast amounts of money for them. And we got in, and the costumes were there, and all they could do in these costumes was... we paid 8 fantastic dancers to go. Well, they couldn't breathe either. So we had to pay 8 guys with oxygen tubes to stick them up their arses on the bottom of them after every take. What is more, they were too big to go through any door in the set. The doors are this big, the tractators were this big, it's completely inflexible. So we had to completely drop the whole thing all over again. And it was a complete and utter joke. And again the same thing, you know, the tractators are after you. Well, just walk away. You know, it's not a problem, mate. No. The tractators are coming after you like this, you have to go, oh, no, stay away, and run towards them to make it all convincing. Stay away. Well, what is this about? That's why you should laugh at Doctor Who. Doctor Who's great. It's good, clean fun. Good dirty fun sometimes. Something against the dirty fun, you know? Especially when you're shooting in the rain. Yeah. That's interesting. A lot of Doctor Who shot in the rain, but you don't notice. It's interesting about shooting in England, when you film in England, that when it rains, you can't see rain. Frequently you'll be working with an umbrella over your head, and then just quickly take the umbrella off to shoot 20 seconds, and you can shoot a whole programme looking as if it's sunny when it's pouring rain. And they dry your hair in between. But there has to be incredibly heavy rain to pick up on camera. If you really want it to look as if it's raining, you have to actually get a fire engine or something and push water, a pump over the top of the camera onto the actors. It just doesn't look as if it's raining otherwise. It's a weird thing. Don't know why. Another question? Yeah.
So did you used to watch Doctor Who before perhaps you got into acting yourself?
Did I watch Doctor Who before I got into acting? No. Well, I did some. Yeah, I watched it occasionally, but I didn't have a television, so I didn't really watch much television at all. I didn't have a television when I was on the boat, actually, when I was working on Doctor Who for a while. I mean, I used to see them, but there were some of them I hadn't seen. And I'd just gone, Jude was working in Leeds, and I'd just gone to phone from the underground station or something, and I was coming back to the boat, and I was walking to this big shopping centre, and there were like, 180 televisions in this window, and there was me on television. So I remember it was freezing. I was doing up the boat under a motorway bridge. Don't ask me why. I was on about 26 mini Mars bars a day and a bottle of whiskey. And me and the dog, you know, I'm able to move with the cold walking back. And I stood in this shopping centre watching this episode of Doctor Who I hadn't seen, thinking, they'd never believe it, you know? They'd never believe it. But, you know, maybe that makes you a good actor. I think it does. I think if you lose touch with people, you stop being able to act. It's just one of my things. One of my pet hates is Meryl Streep. I just can't believe it. Another one of my pet hates is Dustin Hoffman. And I just see Dustin Hoffman, he's got a beard on, a limp, you know, he spent 6 hours in the makeup chair, he moves one step, you think, oh, it's Dustin Hoffman. And I just think he's the most unversatile actor in the world. And I think Meryl Streep's exactly the same. She's always Meryl Streep. None of them have ever felt anything possibly ever in their life. You know, I mean, I'm putting my head on the line here. Other actors, you see, I think are wonderful. I mean, I just think other actors are wonderful. But then 2 examples I would then give you, being clean actors. Clean actors. We just don't need them in our book. Yeah.
What has being in Doctor Who done for your career?
He's a plant. He's got to be a plant.
The animal thing.
Don't say there's nothing for your career. It doesn't do anything bad for your career either, I have to
I
say.
was thinking about since such a successful and famous series that you might have actually have the acting experience may have helped getting you some...
No way at all. One of the problems is that when you act on Doctor Who, it's very two-dimensionally. It's a cartoon, right? It comes back to the life of being about Dreamtime monsters chasing you down corridors. And so therefore people watch you and they have no imagination, they think that's how you act. Right? Fortunately, I'd done enough work before Doctor Who for people to realise that that wasn't how I acted all the time. I didn't do this incredibly over-the-top performance. Doctor Who needs that. Excuse me. It has to be done like that. What do you do? Fortunately, I was known enough in the business. It's very, very damaging if you haven't done anything else. Because people can't see you outside that concept of Doctor Who. And they see you as this huge character. And they can't conceive of you as anything else. Now, it didn't hurt me, but I am an exception. I just went back into being a sort of BBC stock artist after that, working on things for the BBC, doing some theatre, trolling through life being a jobbing British actor. But it certainly doesn't help you. But it completely changes your life. I mean, I'm about to leave here and go to Chicago and do a convention. I'm very grateful for Doctor Who. Partly because I met some, mostly because of the lovely people I've met, really. You know? It's a great thing. And I think any television programme that gets people off their arses and they don't just sit there watching it, and they actually get out and do something to do with it. It stimulates something. I mean, there aren't many programs that stimulate anything. It's not that you must have something going for it. So yeah, that's what I feel. You do have a problem when you first come out of Doctor Who because you're still on television all the time, and it's very difficult for people to accept you as anything else. But again, I was lucky because I had this bright red hair. I looked extraordinary. These, eyebrows stuck up with glue, and all makeup around the eyes, and this fake tan on, and not a fake tan, it's a beach this morning, So I was lucky. I came out, and within a week I didn't look like what I did on Doctor Who, because I had all my hair cut off, and it grew again like this. I hated what I looked like on Doctor Who. Awful. My mother used to hate it as well. My mother gets upset. She won't. I did an episode of GP over here where I played a really nasty character who firebombed the surgery and, all sort of usual Mark Strickson character. And I was on in the UK and my mother wouldn't watch it because she just didn't want to see me being like that. And Julie, who I'm sort of now about to get divorced, we have a very amicable relationship, we're still best of friends, but she watched 10 minutes of it and said, I didn't really want to watch the rest of it, Mark, I don't like seeing you like that. It's not nice. So it's strange. Strange, really. Yeah.
have you always played violent characters?
Yeah, yeah, I have no idea why. Yeah.
Enjoy going to conventions?
Do I enjoy going to conventions? No, damn! It's horrible being here. Question. Yes and no. Luke's looking, my friend Luke's looking at me from about saying, how the hell do you answer this? Get out of that, Strickson. I do meet lots of nice people at conventions. I get very, I mean, if you think it's easy to stand up here and talk like this, it isn't. I mean, one of the things about being an actor is, when you're an actor on stage or an actor on television, you've got a character to hide behind. You're seeing me. This is Mark Strickson. I don't change when I walk out that door. I don't suddenly become somebody else, alright? This is me. And it's horrifying the first time you stand up on a stage and are asked to talk about you and your experiences in life and whatever. It's really difficult and it's very tiring. So, do I enjoy conventions? Yes. But they're not so much hard work as you do tend to be very drained by the end of it, particularly if you've just finished your exams at university. In which case you're drained anyway. I wanted a big night out last night. I wanted to go out and rage, and I was on the overnight bus to Newcastle. Yeah. So yeah, but please, something that means I don't want to be invited again, please. No, I mean, so essentially, yes, I do enjoy them. And one of the reasons I enjoy this is because it means that television isn't as dead as I think it is. It is making people do things, it is making people think, it's creative in some way, and I like to know that. It makes me feel a whole lot better about the last 10 years of my life. Yes?
Do you think dying has a special effect about spoiled the effect of your imagination?
Do I think that how special effects are done spoils the effect of my imagination? Well, fortunately, with the special effects in Doctor Who, you often have to use your imagination anyway. So what they would have looked like if they got right. Yeah? I mean, it's a great story about it. It's tractations here. Everything went wrong in tractations. But there's Peter, me and Janet, and we're in this cave, and we're supposed to come out, and there's supposed to be this explosion. So there's this big sort of barrel thing, which is pressurised, it's full of bits of cork. And when the explosion happens, this thing pushes the cork out all over the front of the camera, right? And it looks as if it's an explosion. It looks as rocks shooting everywhere, whatever. And we come out, nothing. Absolutely nothing happened. So we go back into the cave. And we hear, oh we go, studio! And Pete says, excuse me, but there wasn't any explosion, nothing happened. Oh, don't worry, we'll lay something on later, it'll fine to us. Then you think there's these three actors and they've come up and gone. What do people think? They think, those actors are awful. I mean, this is in essence the situation you're in. And I learned very quickly on Doctor Who, whatever happens, keep acting. Because they'll probably take that. Most of it was done on one take. I mean, you may not believe that, but it was. Most of it was done on one take. And you lived with it. To the extent, and I've said this before, but they turned the lights out at 10 o'clock at the studio. And if you haven't got it done by 10 o'clock, well, too bad. Yeah, I mean, too bad. It means as a director, you don't work again on the programme because it means a remount, and that's vastly expensive. So you get it done. And you do it just by telling everybody to speak the words twice as fast as when you're running out of time. Simple as that. Speak the words twice as fast. Get the plot in. And that happened to me in my last episode, where I got that scene where I'm with the character in the spaceship. I mean, Fiona come in and said to me, Mark, you've got 15 seconds to do this scene. Get the plot in. Go for it. Go. And the lights went out at the end. What a way to go on a Doctor Who. I got the invite to my farewell party at the BBC the day after. That's absolutely true. Yes.
Considering how stressful you just said it is, do people get ulcers during Doctor Who?
I just tell you an extremely embarrassing story about me now. I'll tell an extremely embarrassing one about John Nathan Turner. Why didn't I tell one about me? I don't mind, it's a funny story actually. See, people get ulcers. Well, when I was on Doctor Who, I kept getting this stomachache all the time. I'm not a very relaxed person, I think. I'm much better than I used to be. But the doctor thought I had an ulcer. So I went to the Archers, yes, people do get ulcers. And if you say you're an actor, they put you in for a check, you know, they think, oh, you know, I know an actor. And I went into the hospital, and Judy was doing a play called Once a Catholic at Bromley, which is a theatre just on the edges of London. And it was her first night there before I went into hospital for this. And you have to take this stuff, this chalk that goes into you, and it completely takes you, you know, you drink this chalk, but in order for the chalk to work, you have to have a completely empty system. So I had to take this thing, right, which made me empty my system. So the first night of this play, I was on the back row nearest the gentleman's toilet. And I was going out every 10 minutes. I got to hospital the next morning, they said, fine, Mr. Strickson, you know, take your clothes on, put the dressing gown on, put the dressing gown on. And then strapped me naked to this iron. I broke this stuff. They strapped me naked to this iron thing. And I sort of went up in the air like the Leonardo da Vinci man. Which should point out this time I had a rubber pipe up my arse, which they pumped the chalk through. Should any of you think you've got an ulcer, you know, before you go through all this, think about it again. And at this point, 30 medical students walked in. One of whom was there to say, isn't that the guy off Doctor Who? I tried to keep a sense of humour about it. At which point they pumped about 6 gallons of air up my arse, and I forgot about everything else. So, anyway, you get over this, and the iron table goes down to the bottom again, and the nurse says, would you like a towel, Mrs. Strickson, to cover yourself? I think it's a bit late. If you think I've got any dignity left whatsoever, you've got to be joking, forget the towel. And so they said, oh, it's all over, Mr. Strickson, at which point he took the elastoplast off my arse, which was holding the piping. It wasn't all over at all. I ran from the operating theatre in screaming pain, farting chalk out. I didn't have an ulcer. My court case against the doctor is still in progress. Yes, that's an embarrassing story about Mark. And it turns out, I think I've been under the knife quite a lot. I went into the Thomas & eye surgery there, and I was working on Juliet Bravo, on police series in England. I got a mark in my eye, and it was, the cameraman was picking it up, and he said, you're a really mark, you should go and sort of get that, you know, see what it is, because it's picking up on camera. So I went to the hospital, and the doctor said, this is amazing. Stay there. So I was left alone in his consulting room. Again, 10 medical students. Oh no, not the pipe up the arse, I've got a spot in the eye, you know. I don't believe it. Okay, what's that? They all peered at me. You're never going to guess. No, you're ever going to guess. It is very rare. So they all had a guess, and they all got it right. It's a freckle in his eye. And do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cut it off and keep it so that we can use it for examination later on. Oh, anybody else might have a go at cutting it off? All in all, I'd rather you did it, you know, rather than one of the students, you know. I mean, I am an actor. You know, my eye is important anyway. And so two of the students held me down, and they cut this piece off my eye, and I should never get the scalpel to it all. So there's a little piece of me in St Thomas's Hospital, if you wish to visit. I mean, it's quite rare. If you watch Juliet Bravo, in fact, if you watch that film with the Christmas Carol I did, I got a freckle in my left eye. In that, I won't sit down, I'll be on the good. You can see it in that, it was extraordinary. How did I get onto my pile? I'm in a pile. I haven't got a pile. Maybe I haven't after me also. Somebody ask another question. Am I supposed to shut up? No, I'll just keep going, do I? Alright, somebody ask me another question. You never know where I'll go. Yes.
How do you like acting with the actors in The Five Doctors?
How do I like acting with actors in The Five Doctors? Well, I think it was a bit strange really, The Five Doctors, because it was done in such little bits. It was shot up in Wales, and I hadn't got a car at the time. I had an old VW Beetle, and we went up there, and I did 3 days on it, which is quite nice. And then I went on holiday. We went off on holiday around Wales, and little did I know there was what was called a hair on the gate, which is they check the gate. When you finish shooting, right, before you go on to do another scene on film, you check the gate. And that means you checked if there was anything in the way on the screen, if there was a piece of dust or anything, right? Now they checked the gate, and obviously they didn't check the gate properly and there was something on it. And we went off round Wales for the next 7 days. And I got down to my great aunt Violet in Stratford, and she said, "The BBC have been trying to ring you. All that filming you did was completely up the spout. You've got to go back to Wales and do it." And so I had to go back to Wales and do it again. But I didn't really see anybody in Wales apart from, I mean, I did see them, but I didn't work with anybody apart from Peter and Janet. Sarah, I mean, the only people the only person I really saw in Wales I felt was Pat Troughton. I like Pat nowadays. I like Pat a lot. Remember Pat and I, the first time we went to Chicago, Pat sitting in the back of this stretch limo, and I'd never been to America before, Pat hadn't been to America before, and it was like being in a film, you know, two English actors taken over to America, and you're in the back of this stretch limo with a television and a cocktail cabinet and a bottle of champagne put in an ice bucket. You know, you've just been at the BBC where they treat you like a mushroom, keep you in the dark and pour shit on you. Then you're in America. And Pat said, "I think we might need a little something to get us through this." And he gets a little flask of whiskey from his pocket. "And I like this man." But when Pat died, we in fact had a wake in the BBC bar for him, which I'm sure he was much approved of than doing anything else. He was a lovely man. He was really sweet. Nice. So Pat was the only person I really worked with on that. Well, we're quite good, yeah. I'll come back to you, and then I'll come back to you. All right.
Does the BBC have a take of Doctor Who bloopers like they like to make it?
No. I mean, we don't have Doctor Who bloopers because they're all in. I mean, that's the way. You know, it doesn't get cut.
How they do an American show?
Yeah, but they do them deliberately, you know. Don't think they do those bloopers, you know, and they're just on camera. When you do a show, right, if you do a comedy series, you deliberately make mistakes and film them in the hope that they'll be used on, if it'll be all right on the night. I'm being quite serious. It does go on. I mean, it doesn't mean the business is rotten. I mean, it's funny anyway to make things go wrong, but they actually do it deliberately, believe it or not. But I've got who they are in and spot them. I mean, it's great. I love watching Doctor Who because I love watching where things went wrong. You can see the set shake, and you know, you think, why did the set shake there? You know? And I'm sure you know them. And you can see where an explosion hasn't happened properly, and because it hasn't happened properly, and there's hardly anything going on the screen, you'll get laid on by the sound department. And it's sort of an inverse proportion. If you get a huge explosion on scene, you get... Have you noticed that? That's just completely the opposite. Yes. Quite as you want it. I think if you ask many actors who've been in the business 50 or 60 years, they think 2 or 3 jobs maybe that they've really remembered and really enjoyed. I haven't done one yet. I mean, I remember Doctor Who because it's part of my life. Who I really enjoyed working with. There are people. Keith Barron, he makes me laugh. He's nice. Who else? Who I hated working with? Polly James. Famous English stage actress. And, you know, I mean, she'd be in rehearsals and there would be the steps marked out on the green tape and she'd go, you know, this is Doctor Who, this is not the most developed Polly. And she just wanted to do so much in on her character and that sort of thing, and I can't cope with that. But essentially, if you as an actor treat everything the same, you're actually creep without a paddle. If you don't realise why King Lear is King Lear, and why Doctor Who is Doctor Who, then you don't know the difference in the acting styles needed. You act King Lear completely differently than you do Doctor Who, and you can't take the two values between. It's thick to do so. It's intelligent to realise Shakespeare had a hell of a lot more to say, and that Shakespeare was a genius, and that Eric Say was describing the television writer or whatever, and not a genius. And so you don't look for those things in it. You do it the best you can, and you look for the limitations in it, and you try and get around them, and that's your job as an actor. And, you know, the people like Polly drive me mad when they sort of, you know, they take it far too seriously. The other lady I really enjoyed working with, whose name I can't remember, is the lady who played Captain Rack. Linda Barron. Yeah, Linda Barron's lovely. She's sweet. She's great fun to work with. She was very nice. Who else? I think, I like working with Janet all the time. I like Sarah a lot. Sarah's one of my great friends as well. Yeah. I like working with Julie, my wife. I just did some play readings with her. I've been Armadale. It's great working with somebody like that because you know them so well and you don't have to get over that process. You can give a really good performance in a very short time, which is wonderful. Part of the process of being an actor is getting to know the people you're working with. It's a very intimate process. So if you've got that out of the way, first of all, you can think about acting a hell of a lot better, which is great. Yeah, the question about the lady who has the rat. No, you haven't. You were the lady with the rat. Oh, yes, yeah. So get picked. I thought, where's the rat? I don't recognise you without your rat, you see. She had a rat with her when I last saw her, on her shoulder. For those of you who know. Yeah, another question. I think I'm going to stop soon. I'll have a last question or so, all right? Am I now to stop? Have I gone past 3 o'clock?
Yes,
Yeah. Question? Yeah?
You get the same character.
Try it to what?
You get the same character when you're in a show for a long time. You purposely.
No. I mean, it's the same. There are certain sorts of acting. I mean, like the last thing I did, one of the last things was to play for Channel 4. You have to stay in character in between scenes, and it's really serious, and there's no way you can't. And when you're working on a soap opera, it sort of impacts you, because you're having sort of normal relationships or whatever, but you don't stay in character as somebody who fights green funny monsters, because that means you're alluding. If you stay in character, I mean, it does. I mean, if you stay in character playing Macbeth, you probably end up in shopping street saying, killing people. I mean, serious. And there is a borderline, which is a lovely story about Laurence Olivier and, what's his name, Warren, well, not Warren Mitchell, Warren Beatty or whatever. What he did Marathon Man with? Dustin Hoffman. Dustin Hoffman. They're both small. Anyway, they're doing this scene in Marathon Man, Dustin Hoffman comes in looking terrible, right? And Laurence Olivier says, Dustin, you know, he's feeling all right. And I just, they said, the thing is, I'm not supposed to have slept for 3 days in this scene. And so Laurence Olivier says, well, what's the problem? Well, because of that I haven't slept for 3 days. And Laurence Olivier says, my dear boy, you've not heard of acting. Which is true. That's what I feel about it. Acting is watching reality and then being able to reproduce it. But sure as hell, you don't murder somebody every night, isn't that bad? You act it, you know? And it's very, very worrying when actors stay in character. It's very, very worrying when you see that happening. They really need help. Just to some extent. Yeah. Any more questions? Yes.
What are the doctors after Peter? What do you think of them? Like Colin?
I thought Colin was fine, but I mean, he didn't do enough to really get a good bite at it, so he sort of came and went. Sylvester's alright. Sylvester's fine. Yeah? I mean, Sylvester's a jolly good actor. He lacks a bit in power. I mean, he wasn't ever a lead actor. And it's time to grow on him. And when he first started, he was always asking other people what to do. That ain't no good. If you're playing the Doctor in Doctor Who, you've got to move the studio on, and it's up to you to attempt to be in charge and get it moving. And he found that a bit difficult at first, but I thought he got much better. And I think the last episode that he's done it very good in. I think he is. I don't know, those are the only two, weren't they? Weren't any other Doctors? No, please. Yeah. All right, well, look, I'm going to finish now. I am here tomorrow. All right, lots more completely irrelevant stories. I promise not to bring up my operations day, particularly if I'm on in the morning before lunch. Lovely to see you. I'm going to sign autographs now, I think. I've got 2 pictures, right? I'll tell you now, all right? So I don't have to put a sign up, all right? I've got 2 black and white pictures, right? Different ones, and they're $5 each. They're really nice though, alright? They're really expensive for me to produce. But I think if you're going to buy both, you might as well have a night. And I've also got some sheets of Doctor Who scripts which I'll sign. Right? So, they're $2.50 each, alright? Sheet of Doctor Who scripts. I haven't got much left. Yeah, so yeah, all right, I'll see you in a minute. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Matt, for giving so much of your time and experience.